Put some hair down there.
Things we don't know.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hi, Dan.
hey, Dan.
I know.
Do I need a
So that
password?
view from MD 365 has changed.
I know. I was just demonstrating. You can be anywhere you want in the world, you know? Just change your Zoom background.
Is that the new lot we're gonna be talking about?
Yeah.
Do I need a password for here? I think I probably
There's
did.
a guest Wi-Fi should be able to.
Which is passwordless.
It's little, I agree. Gonna check out.
Okay,
Yes, fine.
town office guest. Yeah,
Perhaps reflective of the weather, the attendance list has dropped significantly.
Oh, really?
in a couple of hours.
I bet it did. Sorry. can't-
You know who's not, I mean. Tony's not coming, right?
Yes, he's not. Matt's not coming, right?
Matt's not
I have a
coming.
list.
Jen is not coming.
Right.
Erlen?
Derlin's not coming. Kyle's here for Derlin.
I have
Derlin's not coming.
Martha's not coming, Don's not coming. Carrie is not coming. Derlin is not coming. Jen is not coming. Megan Bailey is going to try to join from her car, but that was, she had a meeting and she wasn't sure.
Oh, that's tricky.
So we don't have a quorum.
We don't have a quorum, but we don't really have,
The letter. no.
So the letter, we have to determine, we have to vote on the letter? Or,
well. And we'll talk about that, but
Mhm.
I was hoping you'd be able to say it was unanimous, but I'm
Yeah.
not sure we can say that with a straight face if half the people weren't here
They had their chance.
to.
Yeah,
And several of the people who have emailed me, several on this list said, I support the letter.
Right.
yeah.
That's what Jen said too.
Okay.
So,
But
I have to admit,
everybody's.
I feel, I'm in favor, but I feel a little uncomfortable because I'm not a resident of town of
Yeah.
Mount Desert, so I really don't have a dog in this fight.
Yeah,
So I should.
Go tell that to the, oh, you're not a resident of the town.
Of the town.
That's right, you flew.
They're over in Bernard, but I think I probably should recuse myself just since I'm not a.
So can you, that you can be a member of this committee? You don't have to be a resident.
Well, I was told I was, but I think, but I was gonna give you a call now. I think I rotate off pretty soon.
well, unfortunately for you and everyone else, there is no provision rotating people on or off.
there are no terms.
You'll have to rotate
Sentence for life.
Unless you have to move.
I got a letter from the town clerk, Claire Woolfolk, earlier saying, these are the committees we have you on. Do you want to continue on that? Or these are the ones that are up for renewal. So I wondered if
Well, the select board may have some
other
policy.
people didn't get those. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it is 4:02, so why don't we
Get going.
get started? The first item on the agenda is approval of the April minutes, and lacking a quorum, I guess we won't be voting on that, so we'll have to carry that over to the next meeting. The next item is the election of officers, and as you can imagine, I've been inundated with people begging me if they can have an opportunity to
Take your role.
to take my
particularly.
role or Jamie's or Megan's. So if anyone is desirous of taking over the chairmanship, that does not damage my feelings in the least. Absent that, I'm willing to do it for another year.
God bless you. Amen.
God bless you, it's right.
God bless you.
Okay.
Are you
God
truly?
damn you. That means I have to too.
And Megan's not here, so she's
Yeah,
definitely in
she's just,
trouble.
yeah.
So should we nominate the existing slate? Or do we need a quorum to
don't
do this thing
Need a
too?
quorum, yeah.
We
Okay.
need a.
So we can go over this again at the next meeting.
So we can do it again, but
It doesn't change it.
if there was anybody who wanted to step forward, I was gonna give them an opportunity to do so today. Hearing none, we'll put that over to the next meeting when we have a quorum. Status report on Promenade Park contributions to the skating rink project, which has been a bit of an interesting journey to date, but I think it's coming out all right. We got off to a rough start because when the town addressed the return envelopes, they transposed two numbers in the PO box. So it was box 926 instead of 962.
So
So-
who's the lucky
So
person?
it all eventually came back to the town, which had the return address on it. So that slowed everything down, but it was, Jamie and I had a bit of a correspondence. I was beginning to wonder because, weeks had gone by and hadn't gotten any responses, and that's why. But I've collected what's come in to the town. Hopefully there'll be a few more, but we've got, let's see. There were a total of 31 donors to the Promenade Park project. And the total amount of the original contributions was $75,825. That included a $30,000 contribution from the town. We've had to date 14 responses. Dollars redirected, $12,975. One of the 14 sent the form back blank, which was an interesting approach. They just didn't check the box, any of the boxes. So I'll have to be in touch with that.
Would you say 12,375?
12,975. The town has not responded and they're $30,000. So presumably I'll connect with Daryl and I presume that money will be redirected. One donor asked that her donation of $5,000 be returned, but then said she would turn around and make a $5,000 donation directly to the skating rink.
Okay.
I'm
Does
a
she
little-
get a double, she gets
I'm a
a
little confused. as
double
to-
write-off maybe?
Well, or maybe she couldn't take the write-off in the year she made it and she could this year. I don't know.
It sounds like it might be a foundation though.
It's not. Well, it could be. It's not evident it's a foundation, but it could be. So I'll have to straighten that one out. We have several people, I think each of the two of you or a moment, who've told me via email that you're okay with it, redirecting.
Oh,
Right.
yes.
I brought some extra forms I'd like to just have for the file.
Sure.
Have you sign a form, so if you can do that before
So
we
did,
leave.
did you send us a letter and we didn't send it back?
Yeah.
I
I didn't send it, the town did.
I
I
could
don't
swear,
remember seeing, I don't remember seeing one, but we'll just sign it.
yeah, no, that's fine,
Yeah.
that's fine. Isn't that
Well, that
interesting?
makes me wonder if others didn't receive it.
Hmm,
But
Yeah.
clearly some did.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
yeah.
right.
yeah.
So that's where we stand there. So I would say that
That's funny.
there's not a great deal of money been redirected thus far, but if you then added the 30,000 from the town, one of the other large foundation contributions did redirect, and there's one other significant one we haven't heard from yet. And the letter gave until July 15, so, and everything's now, going to get lost in the mail for a period of time, so it's going and then going back to
Right,
return draft.
right.
So.
What's what was the total left of the 70 of the total raised? How much?
Oh, how much do we have currently?
How much did we spend? So
I don't have that right in front of me, but I think we have spent. I think we have roughly 30. Number that sticks in my head is 38,000, but I
Okay.
could be wrong about that because there was a significant amount expended for all the design
Yeah,
work that was done.
so the if anyone wants it back, it would be a prorated amount, not that I think.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
okay.
right. And it was, I'd forgotten, there was the letter specified as roughly half. Yeah. Okay.
Dan, can I ask you a couple of things about that? Is the town sent the letters out, and were they using mailing address that they had on record?
No, they used the mailing addresses that the records, I don't know if they may have had a copy of it, but I had that I inherited from Jackie Hewlett, a list
Okay.
that had.
And I wondered if people have moved, if it's just out of date, because
Well,
it
I
was
got
quite a
one
number of
that-
years ago.
There was one person who died, but I did get a form back from the personal representative of the estate authorizing the redirection. There
Who's
was
that,
one,
Phoebe Milton?
and there was one person who, or one donor who hadn't moved, but somehow it got to them and they, when they sent back their form, they said, please change the address, so.
Okay.
And I don't know, you know, there may be some that don't. Yeah, I'm guessing we're not gonna bat 1,000 on this, but hopefully
No,
we'll.
but it's curious that both Averill and Rick didn't get a letter. And I wonder, did
Well-
either of you guys move? Is there a reason why?
He did.
I moved.
I did not move.
And so he may have sent it to an old mailing address for you.
Well, here, I've got the addresses they went to, right here,
What do you have for me?
700 Sproul Road, Bryn
That's,
Mawr.
yeah, that's the old address.
So there, that explains you,
Yeah.
Where do you have me?
49 Cloudview Road,
Yeah.
Sausalito.
Yeah, so I have no excuse.
Or the mail
So-
service has no excuse.
So you had a date to respond by, which was 15th, and if you don't respond, it's assumed to be a yes.
No,
Well,
we didn't. We discussed that,
Yeah,
as you recall, and we decided. I was a little reticent about that, frankly, because of someone like Rick, who said, well, I never got the letter and you've now redirected without permission. I just wasn't sure that was a prudent course.
It's a relatively small number to deal with, so.
Right.
is our plan then to, after July 15th,
Well, that's-
sometime at the end of the summer week
That
to,
was the next item for me to talk about. And do we follow up with these people, the people who did not respond? You know, I'll follow up with the person who forgot to check the box. And I'll follow up, you know, with the town. And if there's anybody else, I didn't go through that I know has said yes, like the two of you, but,
Do you have,
I'm a little worried about hounding
yeah,
people who are ingenuous to the community.
do you have in your
Right.
database who approached these donors from our committee?
No. Yeah.
it sounds like it won't be either very many people or very much money.
Right,
So let's just see what happens on July 15th.
yeah.
okay. Okay. Comfortable leaving it that way, and if there are one or two, for example, there's the town is the big one. Then there is. Well, the parish of St. Mary and St. Jude, I see, is on this. Made a gift and has not responded.
I'm so confused as to why they, or how they made a gift, but I'd be happy to talk to
Whoever, I'm not sure. who
Steve.
the-
I'll talk to the minister, yeah.
Yeah, he's here. Saw him on his porch this morning.
I'm picturing a collection plate going around.
Yeah. I
Well,
mean, I-
you know, and a lot of those people, they're all part of the town. They might be here this summer. And it might just be an easy, you know, figuring out who is left and how we might approach them. And if we don't meet again until October, is that what our next committee meeting would be? We
Yeah, I
might
don't-
lose them again.
Yeah, no, I don't think we should wait that long. What I'm thinking is perhaps we'll give it some time to make sure we've collected everybody who did respond. Then maybe I can distribute a list and people might volunteer. I know this person, that person. and-
Yeah.
I'm happy to.
I'll do Stephen Muncy now.
Yeah.
So can you give me a form? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
He may not be the one, it may be whoever the civilian leader is for that.
You need the amount?
You said 5,000.
I believe it was 5,000.
I don't need it.
Wow. 5,000.
And it was the parish.
The parish of St. Mary and St. Jude,
That's right.
with the Kimball Road address, so. Okay. Moving along. Kathy, broadband,
Yes.
quick broadband update.
Okay, so we are not too much further along than we were. We are shooting for universal spectrum coverage in the town. And we are waiting to finalize some information, which we hoped will be done tomorrow, because a number of the properties are on park land, including at Jordan Pond House. And when we first brought the park into, we thought, all right, they have agreed that they should pay for whatever their share of the expense would be to connect their operations, whatever sites they choose to do. But we sort of jokingly said, is this going to take an act of Congress to get that through? And they're like, no. Well, it seems like it might. So they have more recently brought in the managers Dawnland, I think now called Explore Us, who are managing Jordan Pond House. And they will help fund the portion that's going to them, because that is an important location. So we're working through some of those details, and it's sort of staffing issues and summertime, et cetera. So we're hoping to have greater clarity on that tomorrow. But ultimately, we're getting to the point where we're going to have a final dollar figure, because we know exactly what locations are or are not going to be connected. And then we will bring it to the Board of Selectmen to approve funding. And we believe that we have funds, ARPA funds, that we can use for this purpose. So we should have universal spectrum coverage as a result of this. We're also continuing to hound pretty much Consolidated Communications, because they would be the providers of fiber optic. And they have now given our consultant, Casco Bay Advisors, a dollar figure for what it would take to do all 4 towns on the island. And that with the stipulation that they would be doing all 4 towns, not 3 of the 4 towns, et cetera. So that is $11.4 million. And they would like to have the 4 towns subsidize them a little over half, or $5.8 million. What we've been waiting for and sort of hounding them for is a breakdown by town. And because we know that each town is going to ask for that, and 3 out of the 4 towns are all working with the same advisor, Brian Lippold of Casco Bay Advisors. So he has suggested to us that ultimately, if we are going to move forward, that we negotiate with them for much less than 50%, that it should be maybe half of that. So that would be a good starting point. But also that a couple of other things to note is none of the towns are going to be really eligible for a lot of grant funding. So we would probably have to pay it, except for some ARPA funds that any town or the county might have. And 2, we really need to, MDI is not high on their radar list. They would not do this unless they had some subsidy to do this. And in order to, first negotiate the price, we also have to show them broad and strong community support. And right now, we have been reaching out to the town of Southwest Harbor, and they're just not interested. They tell us that, this is not on their radar. Nobody calls the town office to complain about the quality of their broadband service. So it's just not something that they're dealing with at all. So we kind of got written off, and that would be the real stumbling block in moving forward, because we would need to have all 4 towns on there. Now, once we get a breakdown by town, that might change. So we'll see how that goes. And so we're waiting and hoping that tomorrow we'll have more information on that from the advisor at our regular monthly broadband meeting.
What's the name of the company again, Kathy?
Consolidated Communications Incorporated. That's the current phone company. And they own 50% interest in all the telephone poles. And they are the ones who have all the DSL phone lines. And so now they're sort of stringing over existing lines with fiber optic. And so that's why it's a lot less expensive for them to do it than somebody else to start fresh, who would have to negotiate with CCI and the electric company for pole rights to attach something new to the poles. So that's why we were interested in working with them to begin with.
So if Southwest Harbor isn't interested, that's kind of that, right?
It's kind of that for the whole island, yes.
Okay.
Until someday, CCI is expanding here and there, and they're saying, by X date, they want to have 150,000 homes in Maine connected. So they might do this on their own, but it could be 5 years away that they would do that.
Kathy, is there state or federal funding available for this? Because Southwest Harbor's attitude might be different if they were not gonna have to. pay for the-
Yeah, and I think that the way all the grants are working is if you are pretty, if you have pretty minimal services or no services, so mostly unserved and underserved. And Spectrum does have a pretty strong footprint on the island, and that's why he says we would never. We have like 96%. Now we're going to have 100% connection with Spectrum. It might not always meet the state's definition of broadband, which is based on speed of 100 gig symmetrical, or 100 megabytes symmetrical, not 100 gig. But we certainly meet the federal guidelines of coverage. So so there is a possibility, and maybe those funds could come from Hancock County commissioners to do that. And that, you're right, that might make it much more enticing to them. So finding out what their share of that is, maybe negotiating a much smaller fee, it could all lead towards, it's only this much money, you should do it so we can all get it. So,
Right,
but we
right.
approached them, we brought this up at a League of Towns meeting, and the town manager was there, and she says, it's just not on our radar. We don't get those kinds of calls that the other towns have gotten saying this is a problem. So they don't have a committee. It's just, not an issue for them. They have other issues, and that's not it. That's not one of them.
Yeah,
So in terms of the actual service, if let's say they do come on board, hopefully, what will be the actual service we will receive, and how would that compare to services of other communities? Would it be very fast, medium fast?
Yes, the Spectrum service, they are trying to improve their service. They're changing over some of their lines and or their equipment and hoping that it will improve the speed overall. But when we did a survey of town residents a couple of summers ago, a lot of people said, hey, I'm a summer resident, I'm over here in this other part of the country during the rest of the year, and my service is so much better. When I come here, it's good for a while, and then as soon as the summer gets busy, it drops down. And I'm waiting and waiting, and it's very slow and unreliable. They have a lot of outages too. The fiber optic is the gold standard of broadband connection. And it would provide very fast speeds and unlimited access. And what they would do is a complete build out calling FTTH or FTTP, fiber to the home or premises. That's sort of the standard lingo for it. And so it would be universal coverage, high speeds and reliable service, and competition for Spectrum, who's always, their business model is to always start off with an introductory rate and never tell you what the ultimate rate is going to be, but it does go up. And so a lot of people have seen their Spectrum bills go up. But sometimes they have seen their coverage get better as well too. So, not to discount what they're offering, but having fiber to the premises is it is the best that anybody could do. And it would create some competition. So it would be better for the consumers to have some options.
so it would seem that we've kind of reached or have in view our short-term goal, which is
Yes.
some form of high-speed internet universally available in the town.
Right.
And this fiber optic thing probably is a longer-term goal, it sounds like. And I have to say,
Yes.
everything I've read about the state's focus, and that this is understandable from a policy standpoint, is to focus on unserved
Yeah.
and really underserved areas, of which there are many in Maine.
Right. And that's where the bulk of grant funding has gone, is to parts of the state that really had very little coverage at all. And so we had decent coverage, and through in 2015, through grants from the state, we expanded services out to Pretty Marsh, which had previously had terrible coverage. And so we addressed the worst part, but now we're trying to make sure that it's universal. And then the next step would be, can we create competition and really have the gold standard of fiber rather than the mix of coax and fiber? So that's what cable offers usually.
Okay.
But we're unlikely to see anything specific in terms of our broadband for the next 3 years.
Well, if, we'll see what the numbers look like from Consolidated and see if they would consider negotiating down. And if the stars all align, would Southwest Harbor come on? And so but even that, you're right, they make up plans by September of each year for what they're going to do the following year. Well, that's only a month or two away. It's not likely that we would see anything in '24. The best we could hope for would be 2025. So it could be several years, yes.
And there's been some significant turnover, has there not, in town government in Southwest Harbor, so,
Yes,
maybe attitudes might change.
exactly. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I am conscious that Kathy needs to leave shortly, right, Kathy?
I am good for a while longer. I'm good until about 4:45, I think.
Okay, I have, well, first, let me just, if
But
that's.
you can kick me out when you want. I'll say that.
Yeah, if that's the case, let's just get through these updates. The Island Housing Summit update can be relatively short. We received a report, those of us who attended the summit several weeks ago. I am embarrassed to say I got an email from Kathy saying I don't think you ever forwarded that report. I thought I had, I checked. I can't find it. I did, so I'm assuming I didn't, but I will after this meeting forward it around. I think, and Kathy, you can comment on this as well. I don't think there was anything in it terribly surprising in terms of identifying the issues or the potential solutions. And they did have some action steps set forth in the report, and I assume the next step will be to try to recruit some volunteers to form committees around each action step. But most of the action steps involved, not surprisingly, funding. They had some very interesting statistics. For example, the median income on the island is roughly $76,000. The median home sale price on the island is almost $700,000. So that sort of illustrates the issue. So, and I think much of the action steps are going to be around funding. I think everybody thinks the Island Housing Trust model is a pretty good model, but it requires dollars.
Yes,
So I will forward that to the group later today or tomorrow. And we can perhaps have a further discussion. I would think by October, hopefully some of the committee work will be underway. And Kathy, I don't know if you have any more intelligence than I about that.
No, I mean, I think that as far as funding goes, they're looking at, new ways of bringing in money. And is a local sales option tax a possibility? Should there be some kind of fee on transfers of property at very high rates that might help subsidize lower income housing, or, at less than $1 million? So they're looking at a range of options, but, and some of those will take, a lot of political will and a lot of political wrangling to get them through. So that's part of the ongoing issue.
Right, the local option sales tax, which is perhaps the most obvious thought that comes to mind, would require a change in state law, which does not permit local option sales taxes, and that has been a hot button issue in Maine for years. So
Exactly.
be a significant political battle. We did talk a bit about the Los Angeles mansion tax. That Los Angeles imposes a special transfer tax on sales of property over, I think it's $2 million in Los Angeles County, and that money all goes toward affordable housing. I don't know how successful it's been. We'd obviously have to modify that for here, but that might be permitted because it's a transfer tax, which is permitted under state law. So anyway, there's some ideas floating around, and there will be some committees put together to try to address them.
And was there any suggestion as to however the money gets raised, whether it's through, donations or parcel tax or whatever? Would it be the towns who would be in charge of, where does that money go? And then who has to figure out how to spend it? We already have MB 365 and Island Housing Trust and some known organizations that do this really well. Are the towns gonna then step in and
I
we have
think
a free
that's
for all?
TBD.
Exactly.
So the
There
model-
were representatives of the town at that meeting. There were the planning staff of each of the
I hope
towns was there. It
Yeah.
was nice also that a lot of people from the business community were there. And there were some other models, the biggest hotel models on the island are the fights between the Walshes and the Withams in Bar Harbor. And the
Wow.
Witham family has made a commitment that they're not going to use single-family homes for seasonal staff housing any longer. They're actually creating housing, and they have changed some ordinances in Bar Harbor so that they can allow more on-site employee housing. And they have bought a commercial property in Bar Harbor that they're going to transform into sort of a dormitory style for their housing. So I think that the word is getting out on the island that we have to be creative and looking for other ways and reducing the impact on family ownership of homes. So it was nice to have the range of people there, but we didn't come up with any final solutions to anything. So.
Right. And we did identify, which I think is self-evident to anybody who thinks about it. It's not just people, workforce people, families who want to buy single-family homes. There's also a significant, Stephanie will probably agree with this, there's a significant summer workforce
Yes.
issue.
Mhm.
People
Yeah.
take a job here because they have no place to
Right.
live. And there was an article about the number of Island Explorer bus drivers who slept in their cars last summer. I mean, it's extreme.
Wow.
And so those are all, there's no shortage of issues to be addressed.
Right.
And it is hitting us, the town of Mount Desert, in another way. There was a meeting last night in Somesville that I attended that was organized by Friends of Acadia and Acadian National Park. They are looking at a parcel of land owned by a private family that wants to sell it to them and have it used for park employee housing. And it's at the end of Jordan Pond Road in Seal Harbor. And so they had a meeting there of the community to get their input on it. And it was pretty well attended. And it would provide housing for 8 more people. And so it's, so that is another seasonal, but with the potential of year round, but it would be designated as park employees. And so it's just one more component of life on the island. People need housing,
Yeah.
so.
What do we need for a quorum?
8.
We have 8
Good. Yeah, Nancy's here.
2,
Before.
3,
With
Before-
future,
4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes, we do. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Get some stuff done.
Let's
here.
go back to the first agenda item review.
Oh, but you're recusing yourself from
No,
something.
I move the minutes be approved as is.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
here,
Any opposed?
as well.
Okay, minutes are approved. Election of officers for the coming year. Is there a motion?
Sorry.
I move that the current slate of officers be renominated and approved for next year.
Is there a
Second.
second? Any discussion?
Is there a counter offer?
I think a statehood should be included in that.
I see a little halo growing
Yeah.
above his head.
Uh, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Sorry. Thank you.
that carries. You're welcome. Well, at some point, noting that the 2 out of the 3 officers are aging. I guess they're all 3 aging, but one of them has significantly more trail in front of her than the other 2. But at some point, we will need to address leadership, and we may adapt to that perhaps at the next meeting, looking at membership and leadership. Okay, skating rink. Jamie.
Um,
Dave.
Okay, so We have had several meetings with several people and are having more. And what it looks like for next year is that we'll have the same setup. We need a new pad because it got torn up this winter, and that is a relatively minor cost. And we're negotiating with Peter Bronson, who managed it for us at very little money and a lot of time. So, and we are moving ahead with, in fact, we're meeting with the Harbor Committee in Durham next week to talk about the idea of putting in a more permanent rink that would allow us to get 6 months out of it. So basically, it would be 6 months of tennis and pickleball and 6 months of skating. It's been an enormous success in the town, but it's what we have is not enough because it just melts. Even if it's cold, the sun hits it in the afternoon, and so you have to close it, and people are coming from Blue Hill and Ellsworth and all over, and they get here and there's no skating. So it's we're sort of faulted from our own success, and it's a magnum step up from what we have now in cost to getting compressors and stuff. But I think we can do it, but it won't be until this year will be the same.
But in the following year, it's the town really that would have to kick in another $200,000.
The town, I don't think is, well, they have given us 10,000 a year.
Right.
And we haven't asked them for any more. Now, the warrant to fix the tennis courts passed, and that's $210,000. But that is I talked to Brian Hankel, that warrant can't be changed in any way. So we would like to get the pipes for the rink in while they're constructing the court. Makes much more sense.
And that, I assume, is not happening this summer. There's no.
It's probably not. It's probably happening next spring.
Because Derlin told me several weeks ago that the plan for the tennis courts was sometime this fall.
Well.
Design work, I think.
Yeah.
That was it, design
I
work?
think the construction, I don't know, we talked to Brian, it was like it was gonna be next spring, but maybe earlier. If we pay for it, if we raise the money, then the warrant doesn't come into play. So we can do it if we raise the money. So that's the idea, is to make sure we have at least the money to put the pipes in. There's also a waiting list for the equipment, so even if we could pay for it, they may not be able to provide it.
Do we have any, I know it was brought up in one of the meetings, the noise issue with the compressors, would that come up as the select board?
It will, it hasn't. That's one of the things we want to talk to the Harbor Committee and Derlin about, is that issue. Yeah, that'll come up.
Sure.
Yeah, although the issue with the food trucks. The people raising the issue were primarily, I think, the residents of the condominiums that kind of line that park area, and of course, they're not occupied in skating season.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, any further discussion on the skating rink? I just thought we could have some update.
Yeah, that's good.
We talked about item 4, the contributions. So that brings us to the discussion of the Heelway housing project. Kathy is conscious of the fact that she has a conflict of interest. So what I suggested to her was that I would give her an opportunity to say anything she wants to say, and then she's going to leave the meeting while we have a
Talk
discussion
about me
about
behind my back.
how
So
Proceed.
I'll, just to bring you up to date, this is generally a 4-step process and for approval by the planning board. And we have gone through 3 of the 4 steps. The last one was the public hearing on June 14th. And so our next meeting before the planning board will be August 9. And at that point, they will go through item by item to see if our application and our proposal meets the standards within both the land use zoning ordinance, or the LUZO, and the subdivision ordinance. And we believe it does. And we have tried to make accommodations for some people's concerns that we felt were very legitimate about how we located the driveways and access. Our original plan had all 3-bedroom homes, and now we have 2 of them with 2 bedrooms, and so it's a smaller population. And and since density has come back as the greatest concern that people have, we did at that last public hearing, we presented information to demonstrate that we are actually well within the norm of density in the village of Northeast Harbor. We looked at 7 other areas within the village, up on Summit Road, Lookout Way, Maple Lane, Tracy Road combined, the Rock End Road, and then right across the street at Neighborhood Road and Manchester Road. And by a comparison of the square foot of the buildings on a per acre basis and the number of bedrooms, we were actually less dense than those places, than any of those other 7 places, including the ones right across the street. But those who were opposed, they're still opposed. And so there's almost nothing that we can say that is not going to be accepted for what it is. But we know, and I think that housing summit just confirmed it, and the meeting last night with Acadia National Park confirms it. Housing is the biggest issue that's facing all of the employers on the island. And this project is a drop in the bucket of what's actually needed, but we think it's important. We have tried to be very careful about the design for it because we do want it to fit in and look good within the neighborhood. And we have tried to be respectful of the neighbors and accommodated their concerns. And we are hoping that the board will approve it. We believe that they are predisposed to do so. The very first meeting we had, they all said, well, this looks like a good plan. We certainly need the housing. And their one recommendation was that we adjust the location of the driveway, and we explained to them, we were going to do it that way to begin with. We changed it to accommodate the neighbor. So I think that we have demonstrated that level of accommodation. The board has already said that they believe it's needed. It seemed like a good plan, but they are getting a lot of pressure, both in verbally and in letters to them, saying why they oppose it. And it is always about, well, sometimes it includes misinformation, and it is often about the density. But when we demonstrate density should not be look, we're less dense, it still doesn't matter. So we have been encouraging people to send letters to the planning board to let them know that there is great support out there in the community for this. And I'm very grateful to Dan for suggesting this. And this was his idea, not mine, that this committee do this. Since this committee came down to housing is one of the biggest issues, and we had all those meetings about housing ourselves, and here is a plan, why wouldn't we support this as a committee? But so I am grateful for you, and I read the earlier comments about seasonal versus seasonal residents and not pitting them against year round, and I completely, wholeheartedly agree with that notion. So unless anybody has any questions, I will drop off of this meeting and let you talk behind my back.
Well, if you drop off, we don't have a quorum, and if we need to vote on something,
I would approve signing this letter.
well, no, you can't. That's the one thing you can't.
Can I do that in advance?
You could stay here and abstain.
But at least we have a quorum.
But because that would still give us a quorum.
Here's what I would suggest, that Kathy stay, not participate in the discussion, and the minutes can reflect that she did not participate in the discussion and recuse herself from the vote. And I would think, and for quorum purposes, it's how many people, if she abstains,
That are
she still
there.
counts for
Right.
quorum. So,
Okay.
is that okay, Kathy?
Yes, if, as long as I can I need 5 minutes to get where I need to go.
I'm
So,
hoping.
okay.
Yeah.
Go, let's go.
Okay, so what I would like to do is, first, I think, I will endeavor to summarize what I took from the meetings that I attended at the opponent's viewpoint, so you understand that. And then we can talk about any comments to the letter itself. The opponents, I think it's fair to say, would say that they all profess to be in favor of housing, just not there. They talk about the density, as Kathy indicated, they talked about the density. And they talked about increased traffic on Manchester Road and how that would impact their children riding their bikes between the fleet and the swim club. So that's my 25 words or less summary of, I think, the essence of what they are saying. They would all evince that they're all in favor of affordable housing, workforce housing, just not in that neighborhood. I don't know if there are others who attended who would have anything to add to that, but I think that's a fair summary of what they said.
I attended, I would say at least one person said he was even in favor of it there, but not at that density.
Not that density, yeah.
And could I just clarify, Kathy mentioned that they reduced the number of bedrooms. Was that in response to the June meeting? Or was that done before?
I don't know if it was in response to the June meeting specifically, but it was in response to the concern with density
Right.
that was expressed at the June meeting.
Right.
It's been expressed elsewhere as well.
What I was trying to get at is,
Yeah.
did that action have any impact?
I think they did
on
that
the comments?
before. I think they did,
Yeah.
I think that's earlier.
Okay.
I don't think they've made any changes since the June meeting.
I think that's right. I think that's right. Now I will say a personal observation or two. And I think I indicated this in the draft letter. I counted 5 houses that have been built and that seasonal houses that have been built in that immediate neighborhood within the last 10 years. So that's, and there has been, as far as I know, nary a whisper about increased in density of housing and increased traffic or any of those concerns expressed with respect to those houses. And then, although I understand, and honestly, from a purely selfish point of view, I would love it if there was never another house built in Northeast Harbor, you know, and that all the open land could remain open land. That would be great. However, if I laid beside me concerns about whether summer vacationers can get from one private club to another private club against working people who need a place to live in order to make a living, I think there's got to be some give there. And I think this project embodies that. And my third comment, which is more of a legal comment, is the planning board's job is to determine whether this project complies with the land use and zoning ordinance. If it complies, they should approve it.
Well, do they have to? That's the question.
It's not whether it's a good idea or not a good idea.
Right.
And there are some legal arguments that were made at the meeting with respect to how density is calculated and how the square footage is calculated. And I honestly don't know enough to express a view on those, but I know that the town's council, conflict disclosure, who's a member of my former law firm, is of the view that it does comply with the existing ordinance. So,
Can I ask for
Yeah.
a reminder of, now that we have, one or more of the single family houses being reduced from 3 to 2 bedrooms, what is the absolute maximum? Let's say you have 2 people per bedroom, how many bedrooms are we talking about on this whole,
I think Kathy said 60.
60 people?
16 bedrooms, so a maximum of 32 people.
32 people, all right.
right.
And the
And that
original plan had 18 bedrooms for a maximum of 36 people.
Six.
So, and that would be the if they're maxed out. two people
Every
in
single, right,
Yeah.
2 people in
every
every
bank account includes kids, everything.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, that's very helpful.
The
There's no
comments,
way I wouldn't think there's gonna be 32 cars or whatever. No.
Exactly.
No.
Exactly.
it's, the comments I've received, I think you all were party to. Don Graves sent me an email stating his strong support for the project. Matt Hart sent a couple of comments. I think he copied everybody. Did he copy everybody? I think so. So, and I looked at his, I agreed with his comment about not referring to
Yes.
seasonal residents. And as I look at this, Jamie, you said maybe just residents, and then I went.
People, maybe.
People, and I went a step further. I think we just say, now it reads opposed by a group of seasonal residents concerned. We can just say opposed by a group concerned.
Yeah, because it isn't only people who are right there necessarily.
Right.
So,
So if we say, we are aware that this project is opposed by a group concerned that it will result in increased traffic on Manchester Road, is that?
Are they really a group? It's opposed by
They all-
individuals
all-
concerned
yeah,
as a group?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a group.
it's a group now.
That sounds like a group.
I just want to add to something that Dan said, which is that there are right now in this town and on this island, houses that are being built or expanded, including one that have a far greater impact on the resources of this place
Yeah.
than what is being proposed here, and nobody says boo.
Well, and I think Kathy, it came from MD 365, I guess, the sort of rendering that was a kind of a nice
Yes.
brochure. And I thought that was brilliant, and I thought it was attractive, and I thought, well, who could possibly not want this? Did you get this?
I've seen it.
I thought it was powerful
It was.
and really good. So I don't know how broadly that was disseminated, but I thought it was a great marketing piece.
And of course, the other factor that is that people who come in the summer, understandably, have a perspective of here's what life is like in July and August. And may not have a perspective that some of us have what life is like in January and February. And
Right.
I walk by that place almost every day in the wintertime. You probably do too.
I still
And
use
Yeah,
them.
we rarely see
Don't
anybody
pick
except
life
each other.
things, too.
Well, no, that walk. I mean,
Yeah.
it's, there's nobody living in that neighborhood in the wintertime, literally. So, are there any other comments on the concept? The wording, the concept of the letter?
No, I
My
think
only-
as long as you took out the summer resident, I think there's a kind of a big underground, I don't know how, even what you'd call it, where someone is really trying to push that agenda of local people versus summer people. So it'd be real, I think it's in our best interest to, and there are local people that are against it too. So
Yeah,
I
the
think
local
saying
people are-
people group is a much better, well, especially, yeah, I think that would be a
I
very
agree with
wise.
Stephanie. I
Yeah.
agree with you, Stephanie, and you're absolutely right. There
Yeah.
are some people who are for it, and there are
Yes.
year-round people who are against it, so.
Yep.
Okay,
My only suggestion would be, because we're not all here, just take out unanimous.
yeah, well, I was gonna, yes, well, I think we may,
I don't think I don't think it weakens the letter. Just
No.
says the economic.
So we're not, are we hoping to get to a point where we actually list all of our names? And would we need to, or are we just gonna say?
I was not gonna, I thought about listing everybody's name. I don't know if that's necessary. I mean, this is
I
a
would.
letter to the planning board.
Okay, so it's just for us.
I mean, I think if you put names, you're just putting targets on people.
Right,
Seriously, I mean, it doesn't do.
right.
The only word that struck me as kind of a little bit abrasive was overblown.
Yeah, I struggle
And
with that too. Do
I,
you have
yeah.
a better word?
well, I know, I was trying to rework it a little
Yeah.
bit. So I was wondering if it says, while we are understanding of this concern, we believe that it is, instead of overblown, something proportional to the benefits of year-round housing or something of that sort. Again, just expressing,
Yeah, I honestly, I had some reservation about that word too. I just.
I mean,
couldn't
it's
think of
great,
it.
but I just feel like someone's.
Can you read that again?
So I'm thinking, see what proportional to the benefits of this year-round housing, I think.
Okay.
But
thank you,
yeah,
Sabrina.
like rework it then, yeah, it
Yeah.
might not be.
That's a good point.
100%, but-
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And then I thought, it did occur to me whether you could just drop that whole paragraph out if you wanted to be really non-controversial. But I thought, personally, I did not hear anybody say at the meeting, and maybe I missed it because it was a long meeting. I really think that the concern that there's going to be an increase in traffic on Manchester Road is not well founded, because nobody's going to go to Manchester Road.
No, they're gonna go in
They're going to
town.
go the other way,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Everything is the other way.
Mhm.
The only people, Manchester Road is most of
You
the
mean
traffic.
the
on Manchester
residents who
Road-
are in the new houses?
Yeah, yes, yeah, they're gonna, the school, the
Yeah.
village, the road out of town, they're all
All that way.
in the other direction.
Yeah, I think it's good to leave it in there just because it is addressing one of our opposers,
Yeah.
major concern, and at least it's saying, we hear you,
Right.
however.
Another thought, which I think the letter's fine, but would it be helpful to have other entities besides the Economic Development Committee write a similar letter?
Well, I think that's happening.
Is it?
Yeah,
I was thinking of your, on those lines, the bigger group of which we are a member discussing housing on the island. Would they
Oh,
like to take a
the-
position on
the stakeholders group.
it? Yeah.
I don't know, we haven't had a meeting of the stakeholders group since the summit, since before the summit. And that group has no officials. I mean, I guess we could try to get them back together, but that's focused more on island-wide issues. I'm not sure they'd be enthusiastic about expressing a view about one particular parcel in Northeast Hartford.
What about the Chamber of Commerce?
That's me.
Yeah.
That's us.
We might have different views within the
Yeah.
chamber, but.
Right, I mean, I'm happy to take it to my board to ask if that's something that they feel comfortable doing.
That's why I'm not pointing just to the chamber, but are there other
Right.
entities that would just, what I'm getting at, we're not the only letter there.
No, I think Island Housing Trust, I think Marla wrote the letter. I will double check and make
Okay.
sure, but I'm.
Okay, because I think one of the concerns that some have is that. The squeaky wheel is, sometimes you get the impression that because a few people are complaining loudly, that represents a broader perspective than it really does.
Right.
And Darren Collins has spoken publicly on this, so I mean, it'd be COA's board.
I can throw in that a group of nonprofit leaders have sent in a letter as a group, and it did include Friends of Acadia, Acadia National Park, the college, I believe the hospital, Island Housing Trust, and a number of others as well. So it's a strong group of people.
That's what I saw then.
And one of the other objections I know was green space. I remember at one of Kathy's meetings, I don't remember which one, but they felt that people did not have enough green space. And Kathy pointed out very poignantly, I thought that having a home might be more important than having a lot of green space or a place.
Right, and I would think that the point that Kathy in her remarks mentioned that the density is actually less than the density in the surrounding neighborhoods.
7 neighborhoods.
Yeah.
We do have the park.
And my casual observation would be, if you think about that parcel, it's not usable green space or even particularly attractive green space, it's scrub brush.
Right.
And
You
she
know,
also, I'm sorry.
You wanna,
Piece of it did, yeah.
do you think we should add something to that effect?
Not necessarily. I thought it was I didn't see it as a particularly moving argument, but anyway, it was just one of the objections that you kind of need to be aware of.
Yeah. Anything else? If not, is there a motion to approve sending a letter, and it will not say unanimous?
Right. I move.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Not all in favor? Anyone opposed? Kathy, you abstain? Yeah, you're
Yes,
muted, but-
abstaining, yes.
Okay.
And thank you all.
Okay.
It is unanimous. Anyway.
Yeah.
We don't have to
It is a
say it.
unanimous vote of those. I'm not
Right.
aware of. I could do this. I could send an email to those not present and say the vote at the meeting was unanimous. Does anyone object to us characterizing the vote as unanimous?
I think that's good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would you put back a little bit, because I think if it's unanimous, then every one of us could be targeted for something. If it's not, if it just says was approved, then they don't know who was in favor and who wasn't.
I think that, I would disagree with that. I mean, sometimes you have to step up.
I know there's some people here who aren't voting, and to say that they're unanimous,
Right. Well, let's just try. I don't think.
I don't think it
I
hurts the
don't
letter.
need to-
Well, he's
We
gonna
don't, I
ask,
guess, need to.
Dan's gonna ask them if they don't want it. I don't know.
And I would say, I guess I would urge we don't get hung up on that word, because I don't think it's that critical. It's more important probably to get the letter to people before they have made up their minds.
Is this is an August 9th event? Is this just a closed meeting, or is this gonna be a,
It
you
would
know,
be the August 9 would be a regular planning board meeting, and it is open to the public either live or by Zoom.
Get there early.
yeah.
Or by Zoom. There's always a seat. by Zoom.
There's always a comfy seat.
Okay, just getting back momentarily to the agenda, I think the only other item was solicitation of future initiatives. And I think maybe we've been here an hour, we can put, Kathy has to go, and there were a lot of people missing. Maybe that will be a topic for October. Among the items, I really would like to get some more, yeah, how do I say this? Younger people on this board,
Oh,
Even younger.
even younger. Yeah, so anybody with thoughts particularly there, and board composition, because a board like this, I think, should have some, committee like this should have some turnover to have fresh
Yes.
ideas coming in.
Yeah.
And the last item, yep. You're the golf cart lady.
Oh,
Yes.
great.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, You've been very patient.
Oh,
And-
that's great. Now I have a little bit of an idea of what you guys do. Maybe even more than I'm on the sustainability committee when I'm a new member. And I'm still working on understanding. How they're doing this.
Well, I've always advocated that we rename this committee ought to be the sustainability committee, and then I was told that, well, there already is a.
Exactly. So actually, I'm just, I'd like, and Kelly talked to Brown, talked to me about this and, the idea of having golf carts, downtown essentially for a variety of reasons. Tom's, so there's a couple of pieces. Tom's idea was he just really wanted to declutter the Main Street, during the summer. And he thought, if summer residents had, knew that it was okay to have a golf cart, because of course they turned and explained to me, you have to have it road, whatever. So, and that they could pop into their the way everyone uses scooters in the summer, right? You just pop into your electric vehicle. And then just imagine looking down Main Street and all of them, you've got these little electric golf carts. So it fits in with sustainability, of course. And we definitely have good chargers. I mean, the town has been really, forward thinking there, I think. So I also, Kelly brought up the fact that in Castine, they have, the town has supported for a while, an electric golf cart for boaters. So they can schlep their stuff back and forth. And of course, we have a lot of boaters that it would be very beneficial to have golf carts down in the marina, a little parking lot for your golf carts. And it wouldn't just be for boaters, but I can think how handy it was to have that, to schlep your boating gear, but even if you go on a shopping spree and you only got your bicycle, right, on the main street, and then you go, I'm gonna go back to the house and get the car. I just think it has a lot of potential. And also I had a store many years ago now, but even back all those years ago, there's a lot of people that get to the marina and never get to the main street to see our store.
Yeah.
And if we had a little, I mean, maybe we could have hypothetically a teenager that would, let me drive you up in this cool little vehicle and you can see our main street or whatever. Or, you know, restaurants could have specials and it just would really connect to parts of the town. And also be moving us forward environmentally.
Yep.
And so, Darlene suggested that since you guys are sort of the money people, that you would be the ones that.
With no budget.
Without the budget.
First to correct that, we don't have a dime to our names. But I think Derlin's suggestion was that we could maybe support it and
That's an idea, I think.
and pass it on to the selectmen, our support if we were inclined to do so. I have a couple of a question. I don't know if you can answer it.
Probably not.
There are restrictions, I believe, on use of golf carts in a public roadway. I mean, this is a state highway. Well, Main Street's not a state highway.
As long as they're street worthy, Darlene said it's not a problem. They've already looked at this years ago. I mean, there are golf carts that are for the golf course. And apparently there are golf courses that you can tool around on the street. You can only tool around with it's 25 or 30 mile an hour speed limit.
And do they have to be registered?
Yeah, it's like a vehicle. I mean, it is a vehicle.
Okay, so that's just a question. The other just observation is, you know, in Great Cranberry,
Yep,
they
they have
have
one
a
that's.
train that it's essentially
Yeah,
it's
it's like an amusement park.
my grandsons just think that's the greatest thing.
Oh,
It is pretty great.
Yeah, and they love to ride it, so.
Yeah, that was one of the other
Yeah.
models that we thought, well, it's already being done very successfully there, and it's just a donation. So I just, so I really love this idea, and Tom and Kelly thought about it, so I think, who has time?
I have a question, which is, I think it's a great idea. My concern is it's a great idea if there's a 1-for-1 exchange of cart for automobile. Otherwise, it simply adds more vehicles.
Correct.
To me. So how would that happen? Or do you think it would happen?
Well, first of all, I don't have that answer, but we were thinking six golf carts.
And would these be town-owned golf
Yes.
carts? But you'd also encourage
Well, and
residents to have their own
it
golf
could
carts?
become a thing, right?
Yeah.
I think it would become, quite honestly, when I watch everyone flying around on their scooters, you know, in the summer, right? Not too many of us do it otherwise. I just thought, and after I got this idea, I thought, well, this is not really that big a difference. It's just a golf cart.
And what would you do about the people coming to town from elsewhere to shop?
I don't know, but what I thought, and there are a lot of details that would need to get worked out. But it seems to me, if you go to the parking lot at the marina, which is the biggest parking lot if you come from Ellsworth, we would have good signage and there would be these cute carts. And you'd be invited to hop on a little cart and go shopping.
So it would, just so I'm clear, it would be a cart sitting there with no driver.
Right.
You would just, and you assume people know how to operate it. Is that, they're pretty simple.
Can I just say, I was on some committee or something, and this has been brought to the town before. And we all thought it was a great idea, and they stomped it out pretty quick because of insurance reasons. I don't know if that would have changed by now, but there has been other people that have brought this.
Darlene mentioned
Yeah,
to me.
and we had even brought up, have someone that would drive it, you know, insure that person, and the town was pretty quick to shut us down, but maybe, you know, a few years later, maybe someone is a little bit more open to it.
Well, I also think, Darlene did point that out, you know, to me, about the insurance being the squasher of the good idea. And, I do think times have changed. Look at all the weird vehicles that are flying around. Insurance got to have figured out how to deal with this better.
And sometimes if you're a little more aggressive seeking the insurance, you can find it.
Mhm.
The other thing which we talked, because I do remember this a while ago, and there was even a theory that could there be sort of a bigger cart with a driver
Right,
that would do a loop
yes.
and would go,
Keep doing
Kind of like what they do on the plan.
because they could go to the tennis club and to the swimming club and to the fleet and, you know, stores along the way, the marina.
That's a great idea, because.
Yeah, and that's what we presented. I can't remember what we were, I was on something. That's what was presented to them. How about we designate one driver? And then maybe the insurance and whatnot would be better.
Mhm.
I think there's opportunity for multiples. I think you could do
Mhm.
that, because that's for one set of people are going, they have that in Washington DC in a lot of the communities, because that's where. You know, it's not a golf cart, but they have, you know, a bus designated for about a mile. Get dropped off wherever you want to shop,
Well,
you can hop right back.
Do you think that I see two different things going on here. One is sort of the fleet swim club, tennis club loop. And the other would be the marina downtown.
Yep.
Would the summer community, the membership of those clubs be interested in subsidizing something like that for that loop?
Some people would.
I think you take it to the SRA.
That's a good idea.
I mean, that's the
And
end.
then I would ask Nancy and Stephanie, what, as business owners on Main Street, whether you would view that favorably or unfavorably or neutrally or.
Oh,
Yeah,
I view
I
it
mean-
favorably.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I was on something a few years ago and people had brought it up. So I definitely still feel, I can't imagine who would be against it, but
Oh, there'll be
anything
some-
to get people up over that. Well, I know I shouldn't say that because you never know. But to get people up over that hill, you know.
Well,
Yeah,
I think it's good, and I think it would lend a certain distinctiveness to this shopping experience here that might attract people.
Yes,
And I think it would be a huge benefit to cruisers.
And even if you still have, you'd
Yeah.
have some car traffic
Yeah.
continued. I
yeah,
think,
of course, but I also think for people that, you know, even, if you broke your leg, right, and then getting up C Street, it's not so much fun,
No.
or.
Yeah.
I
Right,
think also, speaking of cruisers, I think Northeast probably has a lot of cruisers to Southwest because of Dysarts but the downside of Dysarts is it's a hike to get into the center of
Yeah,
town, and if you
yes.
want to get groceries or anything like that,
Yeah.
if you had a little golf cart that you could just go up C Street, and that might be a.
And I would just.
Mhm.
I'm sure you will, the committee will kind of think about and look at the two models. One is having a whole bunch of individual golf carts and another is have a couple of these
right, I think, yeah,
cranberry-like train.
exactly,
things.
I love that idea, I had not actually thought about it, but I think there's room for, it being really kind of creative and fun.
Yeah,
Mhm.
So is this just you, or is this?
Well, I'm here because I talked to Tom and Kelly. And it's also an idea, because I was on the same committee that,
Stephanie?
Stephanie. He had mind blip. Years ago too, and I remember that, I also just feel, having been away and come back, that I'm just kind of surprised with a lot of changes that I don't feel like that we've made much progress in helping the business community get some help from the marina and everything, it's not well integrated.
Yeah.
So can you flesh this out?
Well, I don't know, I think, well, what I got
She
from
wants us to
Durkin
flesh
was,
it out.
I was.
You give it to us.
Yeah, but he didn't think that was my job. In other words, I got the ball and I can hand it to you guys, and then it goes on to the selectmen and they.
Well, I think this is an initiative that we could potentially take on to think about this,
Yeah.
to come up with a
Mhm.
model or.
Couple models and
Yeah.
see.
And it could be the kind of thing that you start out with a pilot route,
Mhm.
and then if that is popular, then you.
Oh, and I just thought of something else, sort of like the train idea. So in the winter time, right, when we have our big Christmas festival, it would be such a cool thing to have a ride, you know, we've done horses in the past. And I just thought in the skating rink, I mean, it could coordinate with that.
Yeah,
I mean, I know that electric cars don't work as well. but
I was
still.
gonna say, yeah, the golf carts, I don't know, if we get a snow or ice, I don't know how well it
You're
works,
stuck,
but
yeah.
I like the idea.
Yeah,
That sounds great.
But I do like the idea, because I do feel that there are a lot of, you know, mariners that just hang out on the boats and then they go to the laundry or to the, you know, yachtsman's club and they don't, or yachtsman's
Right.
building. And they don't really make their way out there and they don't really have an idea. So I feel like that would be a good way to bring some of that income, hopefully.
Yeah.
To, or economy, you know, up to the main streets.
Yeah.
And same with the parking, you know, but if we did have multiple carts, then we are looking at spaces
Yeah,
that a car would be in.
there will
versus-
be concern about inviting people to come to Northeast Harbor and park at the marina and take the carts in town, because the parking spots in the summertime at the marina are
Yeah.
territorial,
Yeah.
shall we say.
oh, really?
And also those are controlled by the harbor committee, not
Control
by
by the
us.
harbor committee, right?
Not by the
We,
town.
we do have the famous gray cow lot, which sits there half empty all the time. So,
I know, as you have documented, carefully.
Yeah, yeah.
Some emotional costs.
But I think it's a great idea. I think it would really add some.
I
some
think so
interest
too.
I have
to-
two things that just come to mind, which can be worked through. One is you'd have to have some way to control whether kids could just pick up a cart and go.
Well, that would be.
That would be number one.
For the bus.
And number two, there might need to be some sort of time limit so that when somebody takes a cart, they only have it for
Right.
15 minutes and they have to return it. So that we could have 6 carts, but somebody could go for a joyride for 2 hours
Right.
and they're not around it.
I think there's a lot of little details like that.
Yeah,
that
it's
we
that kind of stuff.
Clearly need to get worked out. But I'm glad that you guys like the
And
idea.
they have to be owned and maintained and all that.
Yeah, really, I'm liking the one tram better and better. I mean, I think if you talk to any executive at Lyft or Uber, they would say, oh, people throw them all over the place, right? You know, they're in the bushes, they're in, you know, so I would worry about what would happen to our little golf carts. And I like the idea of having one person just do that loop, you know, marina and up and around through the town and
It
down.
can't be more than 10 minutes.
Yeah, and then they can just keep doing that. If we miss the first one, the next one's coming and
Maybe a gondola instead.
with a view, that way you get it.
You know, it would be safer than our walk that we haven't fixed on the way up.
Yes.
Right.
Well, Nancy, I don't know if you've been up that walk lately. I don't know who did it. The town, I guess, has replaced a lot of those
Oh.
stairs.
No,
I just did it 2 days ago. I was so impressed.
Oh,
I
it's
told
much
some stranger, I said, wow, check this out.
Oh, good.
I mean, they didn't do the nice stone steps that were in our little.
But they're
plan,
safe.
but they're safe,
But
yeah.
these are safe, and actually stone steps aren't always sort perfectly.
Right.
No,
So, okay, well, that's, thank you, Nate.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And we will. put that
Carry
on our- Put that on our agenda.
Thank you for your patience sitting through a whole
Yeah, you
meeting.
were here the whole time.
I learned a lot. Unfortunately, I'll probably forget it by the time I get home.
You were the only one.
yeah, exactly.
Any other business?
Thank you.
Or can we let Kyle go home?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other business? If not, we're adjourned.
When's our next meeting? October?
October something.
The next meeting, we should have probably set the meeting dates. Did we do that? Okay, meeting dates. Is everybody content with continuing the current program, which is the second Wednesday of the month following the end of each calendar quarter? So the next meeting would be the second Wednesday in October.
Mhm.
Is that all right with everyone?
Yes.
Okay,
Good. So it's the 11th.
Mhm.
I don't have a calendar in front of me, but probably.
The 11th.
Katie, can you put that in the minutes so that we have it?
Certainly.
Because it's,
Okay,
Yeah.
anything else?
Heard it, I.
If not, let's get back out to enjoy the sunshine. We haven't
Yeah.
seen much of it.
No,
Thank you, everyone.
thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
does anybody know how long is Brown's open?